a pretty busy few days around the Ontario Hockey League with the incidents happening in Brampton and then the firing of Alan Letang and Sarnia. So let's have a little more normalcy and start a brand new week with the power rankings. These are the power rankings that I put together based on results from the past week. And yeah, let's see how teams shape up in week 10 of the power rankings. It's crazy that we're already at week 10. The Christmas break just around the corner, too. So it's going to be an interesting dynamic when players start to join their respective teams for the upcoming World Junior Hockey Championships. That's obviously going to have an impact on several lineups around the Ontario Hockey League. But in the meantime, let's take a look at where things stand as of today. And at number 20, it's the Sarnia Sting. They fell 3 positions from last week. They got out of the basement last week, and it was looking like maybe it's a sign of things to come with Diorio coming back from injury and the players starting to find some chemistry, or so it seemed. And then they go 0-3 on their trip through the East Division. Losses in Peterborough, Ottawa, and Kingston. And after that 9-3 loss in Ottawa, that's when they decide to make the coaching change. So Alan Letang no longer the head coach. So we'll see what transpires here, but I do believe Sarnia has the potential to be a team that could make things interesting in the Western Conference. Look at how the team changed when Diorio came back into the lineup. So with maybe getting a new voice behind the bench, maybe introduce some different systems, this team maybe they should be a playoff team. Like, in all honesty, you've missed the playoffs back-to-back years. In junior hockey, you should be back in the playoffs in year 3 of a rebuild. But time will tell. This week is not going to be any easier for the Sting. They're in Brantford on Friday, and then they're in Erie on Saturday. So, yeah, the road trip continues here for the Sarnia Sting. At 19, it's the Sudbury Wolves. They're up 1 position. They snapped their 7-game losing streak with an incredible come-from-behind win in the final minute against the Saginaw Spirit. It was quite an exciting finish at the Sudbury Community Arena. Hudson Chitteroni and Chase Coughlin, they were the goal scorers, and it's we'll see if they can string some wins together now as the Sudbury Wolves trying to get out of the basement when it comes to the overall standings. This week, they're home to the Barrie Colts on Wednesday. They host London on Friday, and then it's a trip to Brampton on Sunday. At 18, it's the Brampton Steelheads. No change from last week, although a lot of the focus for the Brampton Steelheads has been what happened during the win against the Oshawa Generals with Luke Dragusica with that slash, the two-handed slash. We're still waiting for the Ontario Hockey League to have a final ruling. He's suspended basically until further review. But, for Brampton, they 1-1 was their record last week. They nearly came back against the Brantford Bulldogs, which was pretty impressive. They were down 4-2 going to the third period, but then fell short in a 5-4 loss to the Bulldogs. So Brampton trying to bounce back right now, clinging to that final playoff spot in the Eastern Conference. Thursday, they're going to be in Peterborough before hosting Flint Friday, and then they host Sudbury on Sunday. So it doesn't get any easier here for the Steelheads. At 17, the Oshawa Generals, they're up 2 positions this week. They were another team that ended a long losing streak. It was an 8-game losing streak, and it was snapped Sunday when they won 1-0 over the Erie Otters on home ice. Jaden Cholette earning his first career OHL shutout, so congratulations to Cholette. It was also great to see Brady Blasek back in the lineup Sunday after taking that slash from Dragusica. Although he then took a hit from behind from Brett Hammond, which is now being reviewed by the OHL. So, yeah, it was a pretty rough weekend for Blasek when it comes to the hits and whatnot. This week for Oshawa, 2 home games. They're going to be home to the North Bay Battalion on Friday, and then they host Kitchener on Sunday. At 16, it's the Erie Otters. No change from last week. It was an up-and-down kind of week for Erie. 1-2 is their record as they went through Northern Ontario and then wrapped up the week in Oshawa. Their only win, that was against the Wolves. Dylan Edwards, he had a 4-point game, 2 goals, 2 assists. Well, great Gabriel Frasca put up 3 points with 2 goals and an assist. So a good showing in Sudbury, just lacking that consistency overall on the road trip. This week, they will be home to the Barrie Colts on Friday, and then Saturday, they're home to Sarnia. At 15, the Niagara Ice Dogs, they're down 3 positions. Niagara, they've been in a free fall lately. They're right now on a 5-game losing streak. They have the league's worst power play at 12.7%. Niagara just can't catch a break right now, but If there is a positive to look here, despite their struggles, they're still just 2 points out of first in the Central Division. The Central not really wowing anyone on the point side of things. The Barrie Colts hold on to that top spot right now. Things can change over the course of the next few weeks if these losses continue to pile up for Niagara, because North Bay is also caught up to them in the Central Division race. So we'll see if they can turn things around. They're home to Brantford on Thursday, and then they host Barrie on Saturday. So a big 4-point game at the Meridian Center this weekend between the Colts and the Ice Dogs. At 14, the Saginaw Spirit, no change from last week. The Spirit, they made the trip through the Central Division. They earned 3 out of a possible 6 points, going 1-1-1. Stefan Shrigan was outstanding in the win against the Barrie Colts in overtime. His saves were outstanding. Him and Harabik going back and forth in saves ended up being a big factor in Saginaw's win Thursday night. And then Demian Zhilkin, a 4-goal performance up in North Bay. They ended up losing in a shootout in that one, but still, what a performance there. Zhilkin trying to get the big 2 points there for Saginaw to wrap up the road trip. This week, they have a home and home with the Windsor Spitfires. It starts Friday at the WFCU Center, and then they're home to Windsor on Saturday. Now, for Saginaw, they've played pretty good against Windsor, and we'll see if that trend continues here going into the weekend. At 13, the North Bay Battalion, they're up 2 positions. They were 2-0 last week with wins over Erie and Saginaw. They're right now riding a 4-game point streak, and they're tied with Niagara now for second in the Central Division, 2 points back of Barrie for first. Liram Amidovski's been playing well of late. He has 3 goals, 2 assists over his last 4 games. So Amidovski starting to step up a bit here for North Bay as they try and get things going. This week, they're home to the London Knights on Thursday, and then they visit the Oshawa Generals on Friday. At 12, the Peterborough Petes, they drop 1 position this week. Now, nothing against the Petes. They were just passed by a team that's been on a hot streak because the Peterborough Petes, they've been actually playing some really good hockey. The game in Barrie was probably the best game I've seen all season. It was a 3-1 final for the Barrie Colts, so Peterborough falling short. But before that, they earned 2 wins. So they had a 2-1 record overall last week. And yeah, we'll see what's in store for Peterborough. I feel as though this team's got the right groove going. And we'll see if they can build on that. Thursday, they're home to the Brampton Steelheads. Friday, they're in Kingston before hosting the Frontenacs on Saturday. So a big 3-3 coming up. At number 11, the Owen Sound Attack. They are down 4 positions this week. Injuries seem to be taking their toll on this team going forward. 0-2 is their record, losses to London and Flint. And now they have 1 win over their last 5 games. So things not going too well right now for Owen Sound, trying to figure things out, get the chemistry going. Caden Taylor made his Owen Sound Attack debut over the weekend. No points in those 2 games, although he managed 5 shots. So it'll take him time to get used to the systems of Owen Sound. But yeah, it's a little adversity right now for the Owen Sound Attack. This week, they are in Guelph on Friday, so there's a tough challenge. Saturday, they're home to Ottawa, so another tough opponent. And then Sunday, they're home to Flint. So all 3 games in 3 nights against some very strong hockey clubs right now in the Ontario Hockey League: Guelph, Ottawa, and Flint. At 10, we have the Kingston Frontenacs. No change from last week. And for the Fronts, it looks like they might be turning things around. 2-0-1 was their record last week. They had 2 wins over Niagara and Sarnia. So we'll see how the upcoming week goes, because Niagara and Sarnia, of course, have been struggling these last few games. But the win over Niagara, it came in overtime, and Andrew Kuzma was the overtime hero. He now has 2 goals and an assist over his last 2 games, so not bad there from Kuzma. This week for Kingston, they're home to Ottawa Wednesday. That's the school day game. Friday, they're home to Peterborough, and then they visit the Petes on Saturday. At number 9, the Flint Firebirds. They are up 4 positions. What an impressive run it's been for Flint of late. 3-0 is their record last week. Wins over London, Brantford, and Owen Sound. Of course, the win against the Bulldogs was in overtime because no one seems to be able to beat them in regulation. But still, Flint's now on a 6-game winning streak. They're 8-2 over their last 10 games. That's one of the best records over their last 10 games in the Ontario Hockey League. Nathan Aspinall has been a fantastic leader for this team. Over the last 2 games, 4 goals, 3 assists, 7 points. So not too shabby from the New York Rangers prospect. This week, they're on the road for 3. It starts Friday in Brampton. Saturday, they're in Guelph. And then Sunday in Owen Sound. I'm curious as to how that Flint Guelph game is going to go because those are two teams, both 8-2 over their last 10 games, two of the hottest teams right now in the Ontario Hockey League. At number 8, the Sioux Greyhounds. They are up one position, and the Greyhounds found themselves on a very difficult road trip. That didn't seem to bother them. 2-0-1 was their record. That included an overtime win in Windsor. Christopher Brown, he scored the game winner. And then Landon Miller posting an 18-save shutout of the Kitchener Rangers before losing in a shootout last night to the London Knights. Maybe it has to do with the new black third jerseys. They're undefeated in regulation since they unveiled them a week ago. So maybe they need to bust those out a little more often. We'll have to wait and see. But they only have one game coming up this week, and that's at home to the London Knights. So we'll see what's in store here for Sault Ste. Marie with their one game. At 7, the London Knights, they're down 2 positions this week. It's not a knock against the Knights. They dropped because they were just simply passed. There's a team that kind of rocketed up the power rankings, and London just got knocked down. But still, 2-1 was their record last week. They did win in a shootout against the Greyhounds, which I count as a tie when I factor in the power rankings. But still, London has been playing some really good hockey of late. Brady Wasslin continues to be a standout since coming over from Niagara. He now has 6 goals in 9 games for the London Knights since that trade. And also, maybe don't look at the standings if you're not a London fan because they're back at the top of the Midwest Division. Yeah, for all the talk about, London's off to that slow start and, the Knights are in a rebuild, well, they're back on top in the Midwest Division. So we'll see how long that lasts. They're doing the Northern Ontario road trip this weekend. It starts Thursday in North Bay. Friday, they're in Sudbury. And then Saturday, they're in Sault Ste. Marie. So 3 games and 3 nights through Northern Ontario. So that's not an easy task here. And we'll see how the Knights handle that one. At 6, the Barrie Colts, no change from last week. The Colts, they just continue to find ways to get points. They're 1-0-1 last week. That was their record. They're now riding a 9-game point streak. They're 7-1-1-1 over their last 10 games. Cole Beaudoin, he continues to provide the offense, scoring the goals, while Ben Harabic, sensational in net. That included a 43-save performance in the win over the Peterborough Petes. So the Barrie Colts also playing without Aitchison and Eliason over the last 2 games. They were serving those 2-game suspensions, but they'll return Wednesday when they're in Sudbury to battle the Wolves. And then Friday, they're in Erie. Saturday, they're in Niagara. And of course, if you're a Colts fan, you can tune into the radio broadcast here on the channel from the Booth with Mike as Josh McCann and I will be making the road trip down south. We'll be crossing the border, and we'll bring you that coverage live here on the channel. And we'll also have the fan interaction, so the chat will be open. So if you want to tag along and chat some OHL hockey, you can tune into the Colts broadcast. So first game's Wednesday, and then we'll follow it up with games Friday and Saturday. Continuing with the power rankings, at number 5, it's the Windsor Spitfires. They fell a position this week. Windsor just ran into 2 really good teams of late. They lost in overtime to the Sioux and then a regulation loss against the Guelph Storm. But despite those 2 losses, Ethan Belchis continues to put up points, 3 goals in the last 2 games, extending his point streak now to 7. So Belchis really coming into form. This week for Windsor, they're home to Saginaw Friday. They go to Saginaw Saturday. And of course, the Spirit have been giving them fits this season. But then Sunday, they're home to Guelph. And that's not going to be an easy task there, especially playing 3 games in 3 nights. Yeah, can't wait to see what's in store this weekend for the Windsor Spitfires. Now, number 4, I have the Kitchener Rangers. Down 1 position. I did think of dropping them further, but let's wait. Because really, I don't know how much longer I can keep them in the top 5 with the way they've been playing. 0-2 is their record last week. That includes a 4-0 loss at home to Sault Ste. Marie. And then they fell 3-2 to the Guelph Storm on the road. So they're now on a 3-game losing streak. And when you look at the numbers, Kitchener has the 2nd lowest goals for total in the Western Conference. The only team with a lower goals for, the Erie Otters. So let that sink in a little bit with all the talent on this Kitchener team. They're now 3 points back of London for first in the Midwest Division. So, it's been a bit of a rocky stretch here for the Kitchener Rangers. We should learn this week if Kitchener is going to be the host of the 2027 Memorial Cup. And then once we find out who's hosting, that will give some clarity, especially for the Kitchener Rangers, about what direction they may go for the rest of the season here. But still, this Kitchener team, we had high expectations, and right now, just having some issues just finding the back of the net. Now, this week, they're home to the Guelph Storm Tuesday. That's going to be a tough task. Friday, they're home to Ottawa, so another team that's been on a hot streak. But then they go to Oshawa on Sunday. So it's never easy going into Oshawa, but of course, the Generals, they've been struggling this season, so we'll see what's in store there. But yeah, Kitchener, very fascinating right now. We'll see what direction they go. So I'm sure there's some fans who are wondering, oh, you forgot us. Nope. The Guelph Storm. I have them number 3 in the power rankings. They're up 5 positions. The Guelph Storm are one of the hottest teams in the Ontario Hockey League right now, and I'm comfortable having them top 3. And let me explain why. The Storm 2-0 was their record last week. They had wins over Windsor and Kitchener. Those are the 2 teams considered the top contenders in the Western Conference. Guelph is also 8-2 over their last 10 games. They've been playing some unreal hockey of late. I know they're not at the top of the Western Conference standings, but if they continue getting runs like this, they could challenge for top spot in the Midwest Division in the coming weeks. I feel as though this team, they're heading in the right direction. Will McFadden, he was a standout last week for the Storm. He posted 4 assists in the win against Windsor and then added a goal and an assist in the win over Kitchener. So things are flowing in the right direction right now for the Guelph Storm. We'll see if they can continue this momentum. They're going to be in Kitchener tomorrow, so the Battle of Highway 7. Friday, they're home to Owen Sound, and then Saturday, they're home to Flint. Both Flint and Guelph, 8-2 over their last 10 games. I'm fascinated to see how that one turns out. So at number 2, I have the Ottawa 67s. No change from last week. It was another great week for Ottawa. 3-0, wins over Kingston, Sarnia, and Niagara. They outscored their opponents 16-6. This offense is just coming to life. And what really stands out to me is just how it's scoring by committee. They had 5 different goal scorers in the win over Niagara and 7 different goal scorers in the win against Sarnia. So everyone's contributing right now. And this week, they're going to be on the road for 3. It starts in Kingston on Wednesday. They're in Kitchener Friday, and then Owen Sound on Saturday. So is anyone surprised? I have the Brantford Bulldogs number 1 again in the power rankings. This is now 9 weeks in a row that they've been number 1. They're still unbeaten in regulation time. The record now stands at 16-0-4-1. So what a start. 21 games into the regular season. Adam Juracek, he's been steady for the Bulldogs. 2 goals, 2 assists, 4 points in 2 games this past week. He's now riding a 9-game point streak. So things are continuing to move smoothly here for Brantford. Although, suffering some losses here or there in extra time, but they're still getting the point, like they did the other day against the Flint Firebirds. So I don't know. Can anyone beat Brantford in regulation at this point? They seem kind of unbeatable. They force their games to overtime to manage at least a point, and they usually secure those 2 points. But we'll see what happens. Only 2 games this week. Thursday, they will be in Niagara, and then Friday, they're home to the Sarnia Sting. So that's how I see it from the booth for this week on the Power Rankings. Let me know in the comments down below your thoughts. What's surprising you this past week? And what are you looking forward to most as we enter this next week of the OHL season? Thank you very much to everyone who's been supporting this channel. Love the contributions and the discussions. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you haven't clicked subscribe already. And we'll talk to you again soon.